Have you ever met someone for the first time, yet your heart whispered, "I know you"? Have you ever felt an invisible pull toward a person you couldn't explain, as if the universe itself conspired for your paths to cross? And have you ever wondered why such a powerful love can appear in your life, only to slip away as if it was never meant to stay? If you've ever felt this kind of connection, one that seems to awaken something ancient and wordless inside you, then this story is for you. Because maybe, just maybe, love never truly ends. It only changes form. There are moments in life when logic loses its power. Moments when time, space, and reason all fade into silence, and something far greater takes over. You look at a stranger and feel a strange familiarity, as if your souls had met long before your bodies ever did. It's not just attraction, it's recognition, it's remembrance. As Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. And sometimes, that reaction is so powerful that it burns through lifetimes. When two souls meet, it feels less like a beginning and more like a continuation, like picking up a story you left unfinished in another lifetime. There's a quiet knowing, a deep comfort, a feeling that you've finally come home after wandering for so long. But the paradox of such connections is that they rarely follow human timelines. Some souls come to awaken you, not to stay. Some love stories are not meant to be lived forever, but to be remembered forever. You might ask yourself, if this love feels so pure, so real, so destined, why does it hurt so much? Why would the universe bring two people together only to pull them apart? That is where the true journey begins. Because separation in the language of the soul is not punishment. It's initiation. It's the universe saying, now that you've met the mirror of your soul, it's time to meet yourself. Every profound love story carries within it a hidden purpose. It is not only about finding the other, but finding what they reflect within you. Often, the person who shakes your soul awake does so because they carry the pieces of you that you have forgotten. Your tenderness, your courage, your creativity, your forgotten light. And yes, sometimes your shadows too, the parts of you you've refused to see. When they leave, the reflection fades, and you're left staring into the quiet space they once filled. But if you listen closely, you'll notice that the silence isn't empty. It's calling you inward. It's asking, who are you when you are no longer defined by who you love? This is the moment that hurts the most. And yet, it's also the most sacred. Because every separation of souls hides a hidden promise, that through losing the other, you will rediscover yourself. In Jung's view, love is not only an emotion, it's a psychological and spiritual alchemy. Two souls meet to awaken what is unconscious within each other. When that process begins, the ego resists. It doesn't understand why something so right could also bring so much pain. But the soul does. The soul knows that transformation is never comfortable. It knows that love's purpose is not to keep you where you are, but to take you where you've never been before. So, when the person who felt like home suddenly becomes distant, when your hands reach out and find only air, don't assume the story is over. Because sometimes, love continues where words cannot. Sometimes, the most profound connection isn't found in touch, but in resonance. And sometimes, two souls must travel apart, just to find their way back stronger, truer, and freer. Stay with me until the end, because in the middle of this journey lies a truth most people never see. A truth that explains why some love stories don't fade with time, why some people continue to live within you even when they're gone. You might be surprised to realize that what you lost was never lost at all. It's simply transformed. So take a breath. Let's walk this path together, through memory, through longing, through the quiet wisdom of the heart, to understand the kind of love that never truly ends. When two souls that once moved in rhythm are suddenly pulled apart, the silence that follows can feel unbearable. The world that once glowed with meaning suddenly turns dim. Every place carries a memory. Every song becomes a whisper from the past. You find yourself looking for signs, a glimpse, a message, a reason, something to make sense of why something so sacred had to end. But perhaps it didn't end at all. Perhaps it simply changed direction, from between you to within you. In the language of the soul, separation is never a punishment. It is a sacred invitation. An invitation to walk through the fire of transformation, to burn away illusions until only truth remains. And that truth often begins with pain, the kind that strips away every layer of who you thought you were. Jung once wrote that the meeting with oneself is, at first, the meeting with one's own shadow. And love, true, soul-level love, is the mirror that brings that shadow to the surface. When you fall deeply in love, you don't just meet another person. You meet yourself in ways you never imagined. At first, it feels magical. The other person seems to complete you, to light up your world, to heal every wound you didn't even know you had. But slowly, the mirror begins to show more. You start seeing your fears, your insecurities, your need for control, your fear of loss. All the things you thought you had buried rise quietly to the surface. And it's here, right here, where the love that felt divine starts to ache. Because the truth is, you never loved them only for who they were. You loved them for the parts of you they brought back to life. You loved them for the way they mirrored what you had forgotten to love within yourself. When they leave, it's not just their absence that hurts. It's the emptiness of that reflection. You stand before the mirror and see no one. And that emptiness whispers, now, it's time to become the person you were seeking. That is the paradox of deep love. The same force that connects you to another also connects you back to yourself. You may not realize it, but the one who awakened your heart has also awakened your shadow. And it is only through meeting both that real transformation begins. Have you ever noticed how, after someone leaves, their voice still echoes inside your mind? How you find yourself replaying their words, their touch, their eyes, not because you want to suffer, but because something in you is still trying to understand. That's not obsession. That's the psyche trying to complete its own circle. It's the soul saying, there's still something here to see. We often imagine that healing means forgetting. But healing begins when you remember, without resistance. When you allow the pain to speak instead of silencing it. Because pain, when listened to deeply, always reveals truth. It tells you what part of yourself was depending on another to feel whole. It shows you the cracks through which light must enter. In that space of loss, something alchemical begins. You begin to see the person not as the one who hurt you, but as the one who revealed you. And this changes everything. Suddenly, the story is no longer about why they left, but what they came to teach. And when you begin to see it that way, the wound softens because pain transforms into wisdom. Still, the heart resists. The ego whispers, if this connection was meant to be, why would it end? But the soul has a different language. It knows that some bonds are too sacred to be contained in one lifetime. It knows that when the physical bond breaks, the energetic one deepens, not as attachment, but as awakening. Because in every ending, the universe hides a beginning. You see, love is the most powerful mirror of consciousness. It shows you both your light and your shadow, the parts you celebrate and the parts you've abandoned. And through that reflection, you are invited to become whole. The one you loved so deeply is not gone. They live within you, as a voice, as a presence, as a guide pointing toward your own becoming. So, if right now you're in the space between no longer together, but not fully apart, trust that this, too, is part of the sacred rhythm. The silence that follows is not punishment. It's preparation. It's the pause before the next unfolding. Because before love can return, in any form, you must first return to yourself. Stay here a little longer. Breathe. Feel what you've been avoiding. Because at the center of that pain lies a quiet truth waiting to be born. And perhaps, just perhaps, this isn't the end of your story. Maybe it's the part where your soul begins to remember who it truly is. There comes a point in every story of love and loss when the ache softens into silence. You stop waiting for a message. You stop reaching for what's gone. Instead, something inside you begins to whisper, faintly at first, like the sound of the ocean at a distance, calling you home. This is where true healing begins. Not in forgetting, but in remembering differently. Not by closing your heart, but by opening it to yourself. At first, it feels impossible. How can you turn inward when your heart still beats for someone else? But slowly, through the quiet rhythm of ordinary days, through walks alone, long evenings, tears that come without warning, something inside begins to shift. You realize that every emotion you once projected outward is now returning to its source. The love, the longing, the grief, all of it was never really about the other person. It was about the parts of you that wanted to be seen. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming whole. It is the moment when the self turns inward and says, I am ready to meet what I have avoided. And that meeting changes everything. Because the truth is, heartbreak doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. It strips away the illusions, the stories that told you love only exists outside of you, the beliefs that your worth depends on someone staying. It's painful because those illusions have been your shelter for so long. But once they burn, what remains is real. You begin to see your pain not as an enemy, but as a teacher. You learn that your sadness is sacred. It is love trying to find its way back home. You discover that your loneliness is not emptiness, but space being made for something new. And as you start to listen to these quiet truths, you begin to rebuild, not your old self, but a truer one. There's a moment, perhaps late at night, when you suddenly feel the shift. You're sitting in silence, and instead of thinking of them with despair, you feel gratitude. Gratitude for what they awakened, gratitude for what you've become. And in that instant, you realize they didn't leave you broken. They left you open. You start to understand that healing isn't about moving on. It's about moving through the pain, through the memories, through the self you used to be, until you reach the place within where peace quietly waits. Not because you've forgotten love, but because you've learned to carry it differently. Have you ever felt that? That moment when the pain no longer demands to be healed because it has already taught you what it came to teach. That's the turning point. The moment your soul exhales. Because now, instead of chasing love, you begin to embody it. You begin to realize that love was never something you received. It was something that flowed through you. Every time you cared, every time you gave, every time you dared to feel. That was your essence expressing itself. You were not incomplete without them. You were simply unaware of your own wholeness. From here, life begins to mirror your inner growth. Synchronicities appear, those small, almost magical moments that Jung called meaningful coincidences. A song you haven't heard in years plays at the exact moment you think of them. You meet someone who says something that feels like a message from the universe. Numbers repeat. Signs align. The world starts speaking to you in symbols. And suddenly, you understand. This isn't about the past. It's about your evolution. The universe is reflecting your healing back to you. What you once sought in another, you now find in your own presence. What used to feel like loss now feels like transformation. You no longer chase signs hoping they mean reunion. You read them as mirrors of your own becoming. The difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Because love, once externalized, has now become internalized. You no longer search for its proof in someone's eyes. You feel it in your breath, your stillness, your capacity to forgive. And that forgiveness, not for them, but for yourself, is what sets you free. Forgiveness doesn't mean erasing the story. It means blessing it. It means saying, "Thank you for teaching me what love truly is, not what I imagined it to be." It's the moment when you understand that love was never taken from you. It was only redirected back toward your own heart. And that is where healing reaches its most sacred point. When pain turns into presence. You no longer live in the past or wait for the future. You start to live now, in this breath, this moment, this heartbeat. Because this is where life happens, and this is where love exists. Not as a memory, but as being itself. The soul's journey is not linear. It spirals. Each turn brings you closer to wholeness, but it also revisits old emotions. Some days you'll feel healed. Others you'll feel like you're back at the beginning. But even that is progress, because now you walk with awareness. You no longer run from the pain. You walk beside it, knowing it's only guiding you deeper. And one day, without even realizing when it happened, you'll look back and see how far you've come. You'll notice that the ache has turned into calm, that the person you once begged the universe to bring back has become a silent blessing in your story. And in that realization, you'll finally understand they were never the destination. They were the bridge that led you home. Stay with me until the end, because in the next part, we'll step into the deepest truth of all, that love, once awakened, never dies. It only changes its shape. It becomes something eternal, a light that continues to live in you. There comes a moment, often quietly, when you realize you are no longer waiting. Not waiting for them to return, not waiting for closure, not even waiting for the pain to end. It's as if the waves inside you have finally found their rhythm, and the storm that once defined you has turned into still water. You wake up one morning and breathe differently. You notice the sunlight again, how it warms your skin. You feel a subtle peace where once there was only longing. And it dawns on you, this is what healing feels like, not forgetting, but being free to remember without hurting. Love, you now see, was never about possession. It was about expansion. Every soul that enters your life is a messenger, carrying lessons your heart is ready to learn. Some come to stay for years, others only for a moment. But all of them are teachers, mirrors showing you how to love deeper, freer, truer. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that is what love has done. It has illuminated the unseen corners of your soul. It has turned pain into awareness and awareness into peace. The kind of love that never truly ends is not the one that binds two people forever. It's the one that awakens eternity within you. When you reach this point, something beautiful happens. You no longer need to hold on to the past to honor it. You can think of them with softness, no bitterness, no resistance, no ache, just gratitude. Gratitude that your paths once crossed, that your souls recognized each other, that through them you discovered the depths of your own heart. You start to see that not all reunions happen in the physical world. Some happen in silence, in the quiet moments when you close your eyes and feel their energy move through you like a warm wind. Some happen in dreams, where you meet not to cling, but to bless each other as you continue on your separate paths. And sometimes the reunion happens inside you, when the parts of yourself that they awakened finally come home. Because love doesn't always mean together. Sometimes it means, I see you, I understand, and I set you free. Freedom becomes the most sacred form of love, the one that doesn't demand, doesn't chase, doesn't chain. It simply allows what is meant to be to unfold in its own time. And maybe one day your paths will cross again. Not out of need, but from wholeness. Not because you're unfinished, but because you've both become complete. If that moment comes, it will feel different. Calm, familiar, gentle. Like two stars meeting again in the same sky, each shining in their own light. But even if that meeting never happens, it doesn't take away from what was real. Because what was real never disappears. Love that has touched the soul cannot die. It only transforms. It becomes part of your essence, the way music becomes part of silence after the last note fades. It lingers, not as pain, but as presence. You start to understand that love was never something you fell into. It was something that rose from within. That person didn't give you love. They helped you remember it. They were a catalyst, not a container. And that realization frees you in ways nothing else can. The truth is, no one completes you. They simply remind you of the wholeness you already carry. When they leave, they take nothing from you, because everything they reflected was always yours to begin with. And when you reclaim those parts, you don't lose love. You become it. You begin to live differently. You walk through the world with softer eyes. You find beauty in the smallest things, a ray of light through the trees, the sound of laughter, the quiet of early morning. The world feels alive again, not because it changed, but because you did. Your heart has expanded beyond one story, one person, one ending. It now beats in rhythm with life itself. You start to love without attachment, to give freely without needing anything in return, because you've discovered the truth that love's purpose was never to be owned. It was to awaken your soul, and once the soul awakens, it cannot go back to sleep. Sometimes you may still feel a wave of longing. That's okay. It's just love reminding you that it still lives inside you. You don't have to push it away. You can sit with it, breathe with it, even smile with it. Because now, longing doesn't hurt. It sings. It hums the melody of everything you've survived, everything you've learned, everything you've become. And when you look back, you'll see how every chapter, even the painful ones, was sacred. Every goodbye was a lesson in becoming. Every silence was a doorway into self-understanding. Every tear watered the soil where your soul could grow. Love, at its purest, was never meant to give you certainty. It was meant to give you consciousness. It was meant to show you who you are beneath the roles, the desires, the fears. And once it has done that, love never leaves. It stays, as awareness, as compassion, as light. That's why it's the kind of love that never truly ends. So, wherever you are in your journey, whether you're still aching, still searching, or already healing, know this: you were never broken. You were only unfolding. Every person, every loss, every silence was part of your return home. Not to another person, but to yourself. And perhaps that is what destiny truly means. Not the promise that two souls will always stay together, but the certainty that love will always find a way to make you whole. So, tonight, as you close your eyes, think of them with peace. Not as someone you've lost, but as someone who helped you find yourself. Send them light, send them gratitude, and then return that same light inward, to the place in you where love began and where it still quietly lives. Because in the end, the kind of love that never truly ends isn't about holding on. It's about remembering that every time you choose compassion over bitterness, understanding over blame, presence over longing, you keep that love alive, not in memory, but in being. Love remains, always, not as a story, not as a person, but as the quiet pulse of your soul. The same pulse that connects you to everything and to everyone, beyond time, beyond distance, beyond endings. And perhaps that's all we ever needed to know, that love, once awakened, is eternal. Thank you for staying until the end of this story. If it found you in a quiet moment of your life, maybe it's because your soul was ready to remember something. That love, once awakened, never fades. If these words touch something within you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Sometimes, writing what you feel is the first step to healing what you hide. And if you wish to keep walking this journey of self-discovery and love, subscribe to Soul and Love, where every story is a whisper to the heart and a reminder that you are never truly alone. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust the rhythm of your soul, and remember, love never truly ends.